welcome to this Urban Tango Nights recap. And in this video we're going to be covering our Improvers Tango in a Day course, which was held in Cardiff on the 11th, plus our two classes in Swansea from the 6th and 9th of July. So we'll start off with our Improvers course in Cardiff. So this is the first time we've run one of these. Follows the same format as our Tango in a Day, but the emphasis on this, where the Tango in a Day is to focus on teaching you technique and then applying it to different situations. In this, or progressively more advanced situations, in our Improvers Day, we are focusing on how making changes to the technique has an effect and how you can control, by having that understanding of the technique and that control of it, allows you to really manipulate the dance to your own liking. So, workshop 1 of the Tango in a Day was on the hero with cicadas. So we started off with our basic hero with the leader stepping to the left, opening up the chest to the left, leading the follower around. We talked about the general technique that we've covered in lots of our Tango in a Day videos about arching the front, keeping the chest with the leader. The leader's helping the follower with the back pivot and shoulder placement for this. We then got into the main crux of this, which was all about cicadas, but using the hero as a base. So we were looking at the different phases of the hero. So just to define, we've got the side step phase, we've got a forward step phase, and we have the back pivot and the back step phase. So we were looking at cicadas in each of those points. So from our forward step phase, I can cicada with my left foot, arching it to the left. This can all be done with a clockwise hero as well, but we'll do anti-clockwise just for sake. Arching my foot towards the left, which is also where my chest is going, and then stepping onto it, bringing the feet together and using the heel as a brake to decide how much rotation you want as a leader. We then looked at what happens if you change your foot positioning. So understanding the difference between going between the forward leg and the trailing leg, and the amount of turn you will get in all of these positions. We also then looked at what happens if you do it with the right leg, and how the change in your flexibility in your ankle will change the amount of rotation. We then did the same exercise, but from the side step phase. So we'll start with the forward step phase and use this side step. So again, I can step through with my left leg, or I can step through wrong leg on my right leg to get these different cicadas, and looking at the effects on all of those. And then finally, we looked at what happens when we do this in the back step phase, where we will end up effectively knocking our follow-up into the Castrogada Boleo, and where the leader can go from this off either leg. So this, we cannot put as much detail as we talked in the actual hour and 20-minute workshops in one of these videos. But if you are watching this and going, I don't know anything about what you're talking about, really come to these Tango Days. They are free. You know, you're better off coming to a free workshop and learning stuff like this than paying hundreds of pounds for a lot of guest teacher workshops. Okay, in workshop 2 we did volcadas. So we started off by looking at the placement of how the where the connection point or the physical connection point is to support your follower, and finding out how far you are able to go into a volcada position with individual partners. For the actual volcada we were looking at in the day, we were taking a side step to left, pivoting the follower around as if we're going to take it to a back ocho, and as we do this, as leaders, we were stepping back on the left leg and being able to move our right leg independently. Because this then allowed us to find volcadas with a hook, a volcada with a little decoration, and a volcada coming out of the cross, which I think you just tried to force yourself into there. So, because I'm controlling where my chest is, my follower's leg should not be automatically going into the cross, which is a fundamental flaw that a lot of tango dancers have. So that chest movement needs to lead the follower's foot, so the follower should not automatically put themselves into a cross. So if I put my chest around the outside of my follower, which also means my leg will follow this, we can pivot the follower into a forward cross with a in the volcada position. We can do the same in the other direction. So we could do this without having to move the foot as well. We could just do it purely by isolating the chest. But we didn't cover that fully in the workshop. We can then chain these crosses together by rebounding in and out of volcadas by moving my chest to one side of her and then to the other side, and allowing that disassociation to keep with my follower, to keep the connection. Finally, we looked at finding the leg hook on the other side as well. So a lot of detail within all of these again. In the final workshop, we looked at leg wraps and how to combine those with sort of ganchos, so enganches entwined with ganchos. So again, this was a workshop really based on our experience as social dancers, finding out major problems that both leaders and followers have which limit their dancing. So we started off with a forward ocho, and the leaders moving their left foot in front of the follower's pivoting leg, allowing them to pivot, and only when the leg makes contact and the leader comes up to height is the leg wrap actually being led. The follower isn't just swinging their leg up and around into these positions. They can do that, but you have to be aware that you are actually doing that. And if you're just doing it all the time, then you're placing limitations on your own dancing, and also the dance that you are having, and therefore you're affecting your musicality and everything else. And then finding out if we're going to hold this position, or if the leader is going to reverse the motion to unhook the follower, or if the follower is choosing to unhook herself, and therefore influencing the lead backwards. So again, these little subtleties is the difference between an advanced dancer and somebody who's no more than a beginner. We then looked at seeing if we can start combining these into different forms of leg. So from our ocho into our leg wrap, if I keep rotating to the left and actually pivoting on the balls of my feet and sinking down, what we'll find is the follower will come around, allowing her to get another leg wrap or hook on my left leg with her left leg. And I can reverse this motion to come back out. And we actually end up in the Castrogada Boleo from earlier. If we keep the rotation going, the leader has to move and pivot themselves, similar to the Cicada motion from earlier, which allows us to do these forms of octopus enganche, and then we can chain those together. The final part of our Improvers Day, which was the final part of Workshop 3, was a real pet peeve of mine, which is when followers from an Americano leg wrap just bounce out of it, i.e. they do this, taking away a whole wealth of opportunities. So, you can, as you say, you can do that. However, if the leader is already moving their chest to the right or scooping their leg back, it opens up these other possibilities. If you are insisting on bouncing your leg off and the leader's doing this, so if I tries to do this bad, you end up with, again, this lost opportunity there to find these positions where you can chain leg wraps together, but also allows the leader to find other opportunities for them to manipulate your leg. So these are a lot of subtleties. So it's not about flashy moves being advanced. If you are advanced, you should be able to do the flashing moves, so you should be able to understand them intrinsically. But it's all about understanding the fundamental changes that you can make and how that can influence other things, and also being aware of your own limitations. Okay, now we're going to move on to our Monday night classes, which also contain a huge amount of detail. So on Monday, we were looking at the difference between a cross and a Boleo from the Ocho Catada. We also did a lot of work on walking technique and projection, especially if you are a taller female with long legs, to try and avoid, because you can get away with pure technique in those cases, but ensuring that you don't. So from our Ocho Catada, where we're going to step forward on the left, hook the right leg in behind the leader, pivoting the chest to the right, twisting to the right, and then taking a side step and lunging down. So this is our base position we are trying to get to. We then looked at what would happen when you do a normal Ocho Catada, which involves leading the follower into a front cross, over twisting and walking out. But when we look at the subtleties of this front cross, what we are doing is twisting the chest to the left, but I'm taking the shoulder back effectively to create space to let the follower pivot and slide that leg in front. If I move my body position slightly, so from this side step, I bring my right shoulder around my follower, what happens is I pivot her back, and if I get the rebound of the chest, I can lead these into a Boleo. What we also looked at was a very dangerous move called a low Boleo. So some people think these high Boleos are dangerous. They are not, because they're under the volume of the embrace. Low Boleos, on the other hand, are absolutely horrendous in a social packed environment, because this is what happens. From our sink down, if I keep my chest low as I pivot my follower back by taking my right shoulder around her, what happens is that leg will sweep out, which, if she's wearing a stiletto, is now projecting into the dance floor, outside the bottom of the couple, which anybody can walk into. So low Boleos really need to be watched for while leading them.
And followers, not to throw them in if you're not aware of who's around you, because you could take out whoever's behind you.
Yeah. So at the very minimum, make sure your eyes are open while doing this. So from our Ocho Catada, we have these options to go into a forward cross, into a normal Boleo, or one of these low Boleos. So you've got these options from there. And then on Thursday, we held a class looking at just getting confident of moving between the different systems of walking. So we start off with our parallel system, making sure we are keeping the chest moving forward at a steady rate to control our movement. We're not trying to stutter. Moving in from a side step, twisting the chest towards the follower and walking outside. And again, trying to keep the control over your legs, over your size of steps. So just because you're outside doesn't mean you have to go into bigger steps. It doesn't mean you have to speed up or slow down. So there's a lot of control in there. We can also go into the cross system of walking by adding from ballroom this would be a lock step, from tango this is a quick back cross from the leader, taking 2 steps in the time of 1 step from the follower, therefore moving onto the opposite leg. And we can use this to go into the cross system and then back into parallel. We also looked at this then on the closed side of the embrace. Same principle, we're still rotating our chest towards the follower. And again, we've got these options for crosses as well. And then finally, we looked at being able to move between the 2 cross systems of walking while still walking. So if I just go into the cross system, I can step across my follower with the left, creating that space for myself and being able to move in and out of those different systems, choosing the size of steps I want to interpret the music and how I see fit. Anyway, thank you for watching. Quite a long video today. Well done if you got to the end. Hopefully you can see a lot of detail, and we'll see you in another class or video very soon.